Hey, I'm Markia. Want to hear something scary?
Rock, paper, mirrors. My grandmother's house was old, massive, and intimidating. There was an old ornate mirror in my grandmother's basement that had been covered for as long as I could remember. We were told to never touch anything in the house, especially that mirror. She had no TV or internet, so when we stayed, we always just played outside. One gray and rainy afternoon, my grandmother was babysitting my cousin Fabian and me. Stuck inside, we had exhausted every board game and book inside the house, so out of boredom, we found ourselves playing rock, paper, scissors in the dining room. Anything to keep us busy till it was time to go home. By the fifth or sixth dull game of rock, paper, scissors, Fabian lit up. He remembered the covered mirror in the basement. I followed him down into the dark, damp basement. We navigated around old boxes and dusty furniture, careful to avoid cobwebs that hung in thick curtains everywhere. Deep in the back of the basement was the mirror. It was tall and stood on 4 clawed feet. A dusty white sheet covered with a thick rope tied around it to keep the sheet in place. Fabian untied the knot on the rope and let it slide to the ground, where it landed with a heavy thud and blew dust everywhere, which made everything feel ominous. My heart pounded as Fabian pulled away the sheet to let it join the rope on the floor. As it slid away, tarnished and dusty glass was revealed. The silver backing of the mirror was corroded at the edges, and the whole thing made our reflections look distant, as if trapped in another world. I told Fabian to put the sheet back, but he said he wanted to see if it was really haunted. His grin widened as he tapped on the mirror, and it made an unsettling, tinkling sound. I got up and headed for the basement steps, and Fabian mocked me for being a snitch. That stung. I didn't want to mess with the mirror, but I would never rat him out either. So I stayed down there and rummaged through the old boxes instead. Eventually, he got bored of the mirror and asked me to play rock, paper, scissors again. I ignored him, and he scoffed at me, said he'd play the game with himself in the mirror instead. He loudly said, "Best out of 3. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot," several times to taunt me, and then, for a while, there was silence. Suddenly, he called my name with a distress in his voice I'd never heard before. I ran over and found him sitting by the mirror, frightened. He asked me to watch as he played the game in the mirror. He made a fist with his right hand for rock. His reflection did the same. He played rock 3 times in a row, and his reflection followed suit. I rolled my eyes, but Fabian told me to keep watching. Best out of 3. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. On the next round, Fabian formed his hand into a pair of scissors. His reflection's hand formed a fist. Rock. I rubbed my eyes, unbelieving, staring at Fabian's reflection's fist, then at Fabian's scissors. Fabian threw again, forming his hand flat like paper. His reflection's hand formed into scissors. I told Fabian to cover the mirror, but before he could do that, his reflection grinned widely and said,
"Best out of 3. I win."
It reached out with his hand. The room began to rumble and shake as if a train passed right below us as the reflection's hand pushed through the glass like it was liquid. Fabian's reflection grabbed him by the front of his shirt. I screamed as Fabian was slowly pulled into the mirror. Fabian struggled against his reflection as it used his other hand to grab my cousin by his head. I grabbed his legs and tried to pull him back, but the reflection was too strong. Fabian screamed from the other side of the mirror as something began to rip under the reflection's grip. His reflection then elongated its fingers, wrapping them like cables around his head and hooking into his mouth, and then dragged the wailing Fabian into the mirrored distance. I fell to the floor, breathing hard, my heart hammering in my chest as I tried to comprehend what had just happened. Then my own reflection blinked and smiled at me as it said,
"Come here. It's our turn. Best out of 3.